Okay, this is a couple of days later. We're going to be going through the hardware installation for the IR1800 antennas and all of that. We're at Universal Voice and Data in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not a sponsor, not an endorsement. They're just a really good professional installer that's local that we've worked with several times. These guys know what they're doing. They install radios and data and all kinds of things in fleet trucks all of the time. We're actually going to be doing this in their parking lot. A lot of times they go out to locations and do things, do these types of installations. We're just doing it right here in front of their offices. This is the truck that we're using. It's a 2019 Ram 3500, I think, as we mentioned before. Nothing really special about it. It's kind of similar to a lot of fleet trucks, a lot of big trucks that you'll find. And this is what we're installing: an IR1800, a 7-in-1 antenna, makes things nice and easy. A brake light mount makes it nice and clean install. We don't have to cut through the roof since this is a temporary installation. A CANBus power cord and some antenna and extensions. Cutting to the chase here, this is what it's going to look like when we're done here at the end. A nice clean install of the 1800. Mounted up against the back wall. We looked at a lot of different locations for where we might possibly mount this, and it turns out that the back wall is a good place in a lot of vehicles and a lot of trucks. If you don't have a truck, if you're in a fleet vehicle like a police car or delivery vehicle or something, sometimes inside of the back trunk works really well. The installer at Universal Data gave us lots of kind of insight into what they're looking at, what experiences that they've had. Some people look at mounting radios and devices, routers, under the front seat or the passenger seat or even the rear seats. The problem with that is there's a lot of wiring under there. There's a lot of motors for motorized seats now, and honestly there's a lot of trash under there where the drivers and passengers just things end up under the seat. So that's usually not a great location if they can avoid it. Inside of a trunk, the back of a seat's usually pretty good. And then if you're in a truck like this, the back bulkhead going into the bed is usually just about perfect. It's got really good access, for us especially, it's got really good access to where we're putting the antenna. And there's a nice backing plate there in most trucks that you can just mount straight to. So a really easy installation for us, and you can see how this goes. First thing we're going to start with, this is Robert, by the way, from Universal Voice and Data. He's been doing this for, God, I think about 20 years now, he said. First thing he's going to do is just see what he's got. He's going to remove the headliner, kind of drop that down. Since we're going to be running antennas up under the headliner, we're going to make this a nice, clean, professional installation. He wants to kind of see what he's got to work with, make sure the headliner has space up there, that he can run cables up there. That's pretty straightforward. He's got that. He's going to go back and take off the third brake light. Now, this is a temporary install, so we're not going to be cutting any holes in the vehicle, which I appreciate because it's my truck. If this were a permanent kind of fleet vehicle installation, you could just drill a hole in the roof and mount the antenna, directly to the roof. That's typically what people would do. In our case, we're just going to take the third brake light out. From here, we'll replace it with the mounting frame. The mounting frame has the 7-in-1 antenna there. The 7-in-1 is really nice because it includes dual antennas for LTE, or enough antennas to do a good 5G LTE coverage. It includes GPS, and it includes Wi-Fi as well, so all in one thing. Here we've got the antenna already mounted to the bracket, and Robert's just getting the third brake light in there. We're going to be running some of these cables kind of outside the truck in front of the third brake light. It just kind of made sense for us. We want the cables to come in at the bottom of the mount, so that if there's any rain or anything, it'll have a really hard time getting in through the bottom of the mount. If we ran the cables in through the top, and this is all Robert's experience kind of coming through, if we ran the cables through the top, it would have looked a little bit better, but it would have made it a little bit easier for rain to get in there. Last thing he's going to do before he kind of mounts everything up is put a little bit of silicone there on the bottom of the mount. We do have a gasket there. There's a gasket to keep water and everything from getting into the truck, but a little dab of silicone there just kind of gives it a little bit more protection, keeps rainwater from getting in. And then he's just going to stuff the antennas in to the headliner where he can get to, because he's already pulled the headliner out a little bit. And then just kind of close everything up with a screwdriver, and that's pretty much the antenna mount. That's really all there is to it. This installation so far, I think we're maybe about 10 minutes of real time from the time that he actually got to the truck. So a professional that's done this several thousand times can go really quickly, and they kind of know what they're doing already. I think, as we said in the earlier video, if Kevin and I had done this, we could have probably done this installation in maybe 2 hours. just working our way through it. The whole installation here for Robert, front to end, was a little less than an hour, and that's with us asking questions constantly and kind of pulling his ear to see what his experience was like and what he went through. But that's pretty much it. He's just making sure everything's lined up here, and then he'll just put the screws through the third brake light and the mount, and that's pretty much it. Antenna's installed. That's everything on the outside of the truck, honestly. I was a little bit surprised at how quickly that went. All right, moving inside, you can see he's got the antennas coming down from the roof. Now, the antennas here, the antenna cables, are not quite long enough to make it all the way to the router. We're not going that far, but we need, I think I actually used 6-foot antenna extensions here, just normal SMA extension coax, good quality ones, so we didn't have a lot of signal loss, but enough that'll give us, reach to where the router's mounted. Robert's just going through and zip tying everything, keeping it nice and neat, making sure that everything's labeled, because these antenna extensions all look the same at the other end, even though the antennas coming from the cables coming from the antenna are labeled. So he's did that. He's stuffing everything up under the headliner, replacing the headliner now, and that's the antenna wires pretty much done. And that took him maybe 5-10 minutes as well. Just to get the wires all nice and dressed. This is probably one of the nicest streamlined installs here, according to Robert. What he's doing now is he's connecting to the onboard diagnostics port, the OBD port, which has a CANBus on it in the truck. It's over there by the driver's seat. It's where all of the vehicle diagnostics and data, the connection to the computer inside of the vehicle basically comes from. It's where we can get data from the truck, basically. It's also where we can get power. And the cable that he's running is super convenient because it powers the router and also provides data from the truck to the router so that we can see what's going on with the vehicle. The router is actually pretty elegant in that it will sense what voltage is on that line and determine basically whether the motor is running or not. And by a configuration, we can tell the router to, hey, wait 30 minutes after the engine shuts off to turn yourself off, wait an hour, wait 5 minutes, whatever it happens to be. It's sort of ignition sense without having to run any additional wires. And that makes this installation really clean, really easy and straightforward. Robert said it was one of the easiest, cleanest installations he's ever done, simply because it's just one wire. We don't have to run anything to the battery. We don't have to run any separate cables, just one wire to the onboard diagnostics port. This was probably the hardest part of the installation, where he had to run a wire underneath the trim panels there and all the way to the back. One other wire, I will, just not to lie, there is one additional wire, and that's the grounding wire. It's important to do in a vehicle so that you have a consistent ground within the vehicle. We do get a ground from the 12-volt line as well, or 12-volt negative technically, but it's important to have a chassis ground as well, so that everything in the vehicle is at the same potential for ground. And he's just installing that ground wire, actually attaching it in the same place under there to a little screw that has bare metal underneath it, and then just stuffing all those cables, the ground wire, the OBD 12-volt wire, all underneath that kick panel there. And then he'll just basically screw all of that in and close that up. And that's basically powering ground to where we're going to be putting the router. And that took him 15 minutes, I think. It was probably the lengthiest part of the installation, was actually running that power wire and actually getting under the trim panels. Then finally, he's at the point now where he can mount the router. So we basically picked this spot here. He did remove a couple of clips. There was a child seat latch clip that we won't be using in this truck that he removed just to make space for the router. Picked a good spot with a nice solid backing there. We're not going through the truck. Make sure everyone realizes that. We're actually just going into a plate that's right behind the passenger compartment there. It doesn't go out. So he puts one screw in there, and then this is something that Kevin and I wouldn't have done. This comes with years of experience. He figures out what level means for the router, because if you follow the line of the window there, the router's not going to be level. It might look kind of, even with the router, but it's going to look off to your eye. So this is purely a cosmetic thing. This is just something that comes with years of experience, figuring out, what looks right to the eye, and looks like it's mounted professionally. Once he figures that out, he puts the second screw in and then the third and the fourth, and the router's essentially mounted then. It's that straightforward. I mean, this is a super clean install. Like I said, it would have taken Kevin and myself a couple of hours to do this, and it would not have looked anywhere near as clean as this. But he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew how to make it look good, you know, in addition to, you know, working. So it's really good. And this is real time. I just let this play out so you can see just how quickly the install really went. And that's the fourth screw that goes in there, and that's it. An IR1800 mounted to the truck. After that, he starts connecting the antenna cables. I just show a couple of these here, and then I'll cut to the end because you know how to connect antenna cables. We're not going to go through all of that. That did take a few minutes just to physically get everything in there and connected. And then he just essentially just runs the wires, stuffs them back into the trim panels there, making them look neat. They're already cable tied, so wire tied, so they're staying together nicely, but they're slightly different lengths on this end because the connectors to each antenna is a little bit further apart. And then, you know, once all of those are stuffed in, he'll go forward and just connect the power to the router, and that's basically the installation. Once you get the power connected, this is the other end of that onboard diagnostics cable that he connected over there by the driver's seat. It just has really just two wires there, 12 volt positive and negative, and plugs in there to the Molex connector, and there the router has power. And you can see there on the side too as well, that little red connector, that's the ground wire that we connected, and then stuff that cable back into the trim panel, and he's pretty much done. That's it. A couple more things to wrap up. There's another kind of luggage hook here that we took off just to make sure that we knew what was behind there. There weren't any wires or the motor for that rear window there. We wanted to make sure we weren't going to hit any of that. So replace a couple of extra trim pieces, clean up your tools, and that's it. Like I said, total install took about an hour for Robert, and that was with us asking questions and everything. So you could probably do it in a little less time, you know, if he had done this router and this truck several times before, but a pretty good amount of time. This is what it looks like, the finished product, about as clean as you could get, I think. This is the antenna on the roof. I think really another good, clean installation. I love that mounting bracket. It looks really good up there. It means that we didn't have to drill a hole in the roof. It's a good temporary install. The overall look on the whole truck looks great, and signal coverage and performance was great, but we'll cover that in another video as we go. Thanks for watching.